Hello, all. I'm excited to introduce this next amazing guest that we have for our second podcast um, with an awesome hiker that has done the Appalachian Trail and multiple hike throughs across the East Coast. She came on to our podcast. Her name is Kaylee, with her a big Instagram feed with about 17,000 followers. She has a good foothold in influencing out there with Katie Hikes. So go check out the her page. We got some fantastic conversation about her recent hike through 500 miles in 28 days through the Palmetto Trail, which starts at the um, northwestern part of South Carolina and it ends on the coast of the southeastern part. So, guys, it's been a fantastic interview. It was a point that I think I probably could have talked to her for another 2 hours if I needed to, just for the fact that hiking is kind of my thing, and hearing people that have done the adventures that I've dreamed of doing. But it was awesome talking to her. So, also, we just like to thank again People of the Woods. If you go to their page, peopleofthewoods.com, again, www.peopleofthewoods.com, they want people to get out there. They have hats and apparel, and probably the softest apparel I've ever owned. Great company, and go check them out. Again, thank you guys for being our sponsor. Now on to the podcast with Kaylee, and hope you enjoy. Hello, all. Welcome to our next awesome podcast with Kaylee. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
All right, all right. I'm very glad that before we did this podcast that she corrected me because I was about to do this whole entire thing saying wrong. Before we start this podcast on this section, we just want to thank you again to People of the Woods. They have fantastic shirts, hats. I don't have their hat yet, and mugs and all the apparel you could think about. Their whole goal is getting people out hiking, like people like Callie and all people of uh, age and gender, everything to get people out to enjoy the woods and nature. Go to www.peopleofthewoods.com. All right, Kaylee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Kaylee. I'm a long distance backpacker. I love to teach people about getting outside and to be confident solo hiking and safety and all the fun things that I think keep people out of nature. I like to try to make them as comfortable as possible so that everyone can experience nature. I'm an avid hiker with my dog. It's something that brings me a lot of joy hiking with him. So I love to also help people feel more confident about bringing their dog outside as well.
That's, I think, is something that people struggle with. Is, I mean, I did. I when I saw that about, but I seen some posts about you and your dog. What's the dog's name again?
His name is Ricky Bobby.
Ricky. Oh, I love it, Ricky Bobby. That's fitting. So, what kind of dog is Ricky?
He's a husky American bulldog mix.
Oh my gosh. I've been trying to get my
He's a
wife for the longest time to get a husky and she says no. So,
yeah.
well, so a lot of people, because like I've done adventures where I'm stressed for having a guest on me when I do my long distance hikes. And people are easier to manage, I guess, sometimes than amazing dogs because you care more
Yeah.
about your animal than you do the person. I personally believe. I'd rather see my dog, who I love, not go hiking and get
Absolutely.
hurt. And if it's a guest, then that's their fault if they get hurt. So how do you handle? I know this wasn't on our questions, but how do you
Mhm.
handle preparing your companion to come with you, and
Yeah.
how do you calm your nerves first of all? Like, how is it a second thought? Is it a concern for you? Is it excitement for you? What's the biggest emotion before you get prepared for these things?
100% excitement. I think the nerves come with the excitement, and that's what pushes me to keep backpacking is because I like the nervous, exciting pit in your stomach kind of feeling. I love that feeling. But with him, I think nutrition is most important, making sure that he has a complete diet, just like we need more
Mm,
calories, so does your dog. And so I'm very big on doing freeze dried chicken, freeze dried steak, things that can give him a little bit like a little warmer meal. The second
okay.
is his paws, making sure that's like every night we do a paw check, we do a tick check. I cut his nails if they need it. Like it's just a little, he gets like a spa night every single night. So, um, I think the biggest thing with hiking with your dog is that you have to put yourself in the mindset that it's now his hike and not your hike. So if he's ready to stop, it's time to stop. If he's hurting, you need to go get a hotel. So it's just, you have to take it out that you don't get to make those decisions anymore.
So that's amazing because a lot of people they want to take their companions out. So I hear a lot, and this is the reason why we're doing these different podcasts and videos, and why I've done my adventures in the past is everyone has an excuse of why they can't get out to hike. Everyone has the
Yeah.
excuse of, oh, I have a dog, I have this, and this is perfect because now the excitement of doing the hike is bringing your companion with you, and you get to
Yes.
share into that adventure. How does Ricky do with the camping, with all the noises and all the is your dog pretty simple with it or chill with it, or is he always alert?
I put him in a tent since he was 10 weeks old. So
Okay.
even if he wasn't camping, I would set it up in the backyard. We would play fetch and then we would go take a nap together in the tent. So he's constantly just been around the tent. Um, I bring lots of bully sticks or meaty bones. I pack those out so that when I am setting up camp, he has something to do so that he's not bothering me while I can do that. So I can do my chores and then
Mm-hmm.
he gets to enjoy something before he eats dinner. So that's that we have a routine and it just works so perfect. Just every night was the same.
Excellent. And so I'm going to ask a question at the very end that you kind of perked my interest in that I'll ask eventually about the chores. Because a lot of
Yes.
people, I think they when they think about doing adventures, like my first adventure, I did the Trans Oklahoma. So I went from New
Cool.
Mexico to Arkansas, and I was so unprepared. I was physically
Yeah.
prepared, but I was not prepared for doing the chores in the daily. And I didn't even know what a Nero or a zero was. And I just pushed until I almost died. So um, this is really good to be educating people beyond what they got to see me suffer. So this will be really good. But I'll ask that at the very end.
Okay.
So what my the big question I like to ask people, especially adventurers, is what does adventuring mean to you?
Yeah. That's a big question. To me, I think it's freedom. When I just think about it, I love not being on a schedule, not being on a time frame, not having to worry about anyone but myself. If I'm ready to stop after 5 miles, we're stopping after 5 miles. If I want to push a 25-mile day, then I can do that. So I love the freedom of just being carefree. And I also really love going to places that you have to work hard to get to. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just the reward is why we hike. I mean, when it comes down to it, I talk to a lot of backpackers and they're like, I don't really like hiking too much. And I'm like, because it's not just about the hiking, it's about the people you meet, the camping,
Mm,
the chores, and then of course the views. So I think the freedom of it all is just what
good.
keeps me coming back.
You know, it's really weird, at least in my mindset, is that going through these hikes, I never realized I see all these videos. And when I was doing this a long time ago, it was, I mean, you're looking 14 years ago, I did the big hike. And after that, I was like, I'm done. I hurt everywhere. I'm blistered. And the next thing I know, about 6 months later, I did the Ouachita Trail hike through.
Yeah.
And it's like I have forgotten everything. So is it the same with you that you feel a lot of the suffering and the pain? Because we'll go into a second about what you did this next adventure that caught my attention. Um, is it because when I watch your videos, I've been a fan for some time, but watching your videos, they seem straightforward, like you're a tough, gritty person. Um, but then you see some people's posts, there's always pain and always complaining, and you can see the hurt in their face, but you don't see it with you. You see a lot of joy. Um, is there a lot? Was there this adventure that we're going to talk about? Was there a lot of suffering on this one? Because this trail is a pretty hot trail. It's a pretty
Yeah,
warm trail,
it's
and it's a
hot.
pretty new trail compared to the hike throughers mentality. Um,
Yes.
what was that like? Did you experience more pain than you thought, or was it easier than you thought? And how did you prepare for that?
Physically, I did suffer for around 6 days with really bad knee pain, and it
Okay.
was just I was going down a mountain and I just slid a little bit and I pulled my kneecap. So I did take a day and a half off, and after that, I had zero body pain during this 500 miles, which I was shocked because when I was on the AT, I hurt every day and it never stopped.
Yeah.
But it was different. This is after you get through the first 100 miles, you can feel it getting flatter and flatter and flatter until it is just coast and you are just completely flat. So going down instead of like bringing my body up, I kind of experienced the hardest part and then went on. So that's why I was able to push such big miles towards the end, because I had already conditioned my body. But for this trail, it was opposite for me. My hardship was all mental. I was completely by myself I did have somebody with me for the first 70 miles. He went home. He actually was one of my trail family from the AT. He went home, and we knew he was only going to do just a few days with me, and then I was solo. And I've hiked solo many times, but there's a difference between hiking solo and backpacking solo. And I did not see anyone for 5 or 6 days, and this is not one single person on this trail that were day hikers or anything. So that was a different experience for me. I did have my dog. I did have him, and he definitely kept me a lot of company. But I think mentally, just not seeing people for that long, it sounds ideal, but I genuinely like talking to people. So that was a mental thing for me. And yeah, I think that was the hardest part. Physically, I was actually pretty impressed with myself on it because like I said, on the AT, I was hurting every day, but this one I had definitely trained a little bit more and I was more prepared for it.
Yeah, I have a friend that did the AT twice, and he's done multiple adventures, and one he did with me. And he says that both times he did the AT, he almost died. It was the most miserable thing
It's
he's ever
hard.
done.
Yes.
He's even done the PCT, and he's like, for some reason, the AT is just so much more rugged.
I
And
hear that from everyone. Yeah, it's just different. You never stop. You go up and down every single day,
mm,
multiple times, and it's just never stops.
so I'm really refraining from asking your ideas about this trail because I grew up in my first trail I hiked as a kid was on the AT, but it was really short. So my dream, even at this age with a family, my youngest is like, we got to hike the AT. I was like, you got to be a little older because he always hears my stories. So when I took him to North Carolina, I took him to Clingman's Dome, and then we hiked
Beautiful.
about a quarter mile on the trail, and I think it caught fever to them. So, but it
It'll
was
do
almost the
it.
same spot that I did. That's the only part I ever done. So I'm like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. But I'm refraining from taking up this whole thing by talking about the AT because I want to hear this journey. So if you can kind of enlighten the viewers here and the listeners, could tell us about like already on the intro. I've explained the history of this whole trail, but give us a little bit about the trail, the name of it, and then like the distance you hiked, and the awesome time frame you did it in, and then what perked your attention to do the trail. What was it that said I'm going to do this trail?
I did the Palmetto Trail. It starts on the North Carolina, South Carolina border, and you walk straight down the state until you hit the coast. It's 500 miles. It is an incomplete trail, which makes it a little bit more challenging because you actually have to pull up Google Maps when you come out of the trailhead and figure out how to connect those two passages when it's incomplete. So that meant there was a lot of walking on highways, walking on interstates, walking on gravel roads, back roads. You have to be prepared for that. I did skip 14 miles. Excuse me. I did skip 14 miles of an interstate because I didn't feel like it was safe enough for my dog. So I made that decision on to get an Uber and just go to the next passage. And I feel really good about that decision still because he comes first and my safety comes first. So that was
It's
the
still a hike
biggest
through.
challenge.
That's
Yes.
why we call it an
Yes,
adventure. You know what I mean? So, um,
exactly.
a buddy of mine that I went through the Ouachita trail with is he'd always um, call them, was it white blazers or whatever that or yellow blazers that they would
Yellow
skip on the
blazers.
road. And
Yeah,
I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, don't be so elitist. I said it's called the adventure.
exactly.
I mean, I hiked
Yes.
the Katy Trail 160 miles a couple weeks back, which is probably the hardest trail I've done because it was flat. It's a 250-mile bike trail. It's a
Oh,
flat
wow.
rail to
Yeah,
trail, and I think those are worse than hiking in the mountains.
they're
Um,
hard.
but there was points where it was flooded and I wasn't going to hike anymore. My feet hurt, and I got a car and I skipped about 15, 20 miles of it. That's why I
Yep.
said I ventured the 160, but it was still, it's like who else has done that? You know what I mean? Not very many people.
Exactly.
So no, that's
Exactly.
good that you say this and you admit this, because there's a lot of people that I talked to saying, "Oh, I didn't do a full hike through. I skipped 15 miles of it because of an knee injury." I was like, "You still did the adventure."
You still did it. Yes, you
Yes.
still
So
did it. Yes.
I'm glad you said that. Um,
Absolutely.
so what was your favorite part of this adventure? What was the part that you think back and you're like, man, the pictures didn't even explain what was the most amazing point?
That honestly, I think being by myself, it was just something that I had not experienced. And there's not designated campsites, so you're just walking in the woods until you find a spot. And I wasn't nervous until one particular night when I first hit. I could feel the climate changing from going to like farmland to swamp. And even though I grew up not far from a swamp, I didn't sleep outside when I was a kid. So
Okay, now we're back here. So we got a little bit of a blip. Um, okay, this gives us a little more time to chat, because honestly, I feel like this interview could be much longer, just because of the fact that you're speaking my language here. So we were back on talking what was the most amazing part, or the your favorite part of the hike, and you were talking about how you were by yourself, and then we got cut off. So
yes.
yeah, so go ahead and continue. What was the
Yeah,
continue?
just I
If you
think
want to start a little bit earlier, we can do editing. But what was your favorite part of the hike?
I think it's just honestly just being solo.
Okay.
Do what now?
Yeah, I was just saying. Okay, I was just saying what your favorite part of the hike was.
Yeah, so it's definitely being solo. I had never been solo that long, so just relying on myself was just a rewarding feeling that I had. And then also it was a big difference between when I was changing the environment from going from farmland to swamp, the sounds were changing at night. And even though I'm from the south, I know the swamp. I wasn't a camping kid. I was like a Girl Scout that we would stay in a cabin and things like that. So I wasn't a camping kid like that. So I didn't know the sounds of the swamp, and from the mountains it's totally different. And I did get a little freaked out one night just because I couldn't identify it, and that's the scary part. Like in the mountains it's like, okay, that's an owl, that's a fox, like you just know what they are. But I could not tell you what half the sounds were that I heard in the swamp.
So usually I hear people try to tell me, and the younger generation, which is probably your generation. I'm an older man, so when we did our hikes, we always hear people say, "Well, if you can't sleep at night, just put the headphones in." And I'm thinking, on that sound in my brain, I'm thinking, dumb ways to die. It's instant death because you
Yeah,
don't know what's coming
don't
upon
do
you. I was
that.
like, no way, I'd rather stay up all night if something's going to kill me. So speaking of that, like
Absolutely.
when me and a couple of friends went to the Sahara Desert in Egypt. Me and my wife and kids lived in Egypt for a while, and we decided to idiotically decide to say we're going to go to the Sahara Desert right near the Libya border. And I thought there was going to be no animals out there, maybe some beetles, maybe some scorpions. We're going to tent out there and
Right.
do. We took like a day worth of food, and we all had to share it. And so we just wanted to do this crazy adventure. We had a couple guys from France and a couple guys from Egypt, and I went out there and I had my tent. I had the single man tent and I was all comfortable. And all of a sudden I felt something sniff me. And it was like a dog. And I was like, what in the world? I'm in the middle of the desert. Then it started itching on my head.
Oh
And then
no.
about 5 minutes later, one of the Egyptians runs out of their tent screaming. And I thought, what in the world's going on? So I opened my tent. There's about 15 desert foxes all around us. And it was like,
No way.
yeah. And I got up and I looked down. One just came up and started licking my hand like I was the friendliest person in the world to them. And they just wanted to hang out with us. So the whole night they kept on
Oh
trying to get
my
in our
god.
tents and try to dig at us. It was the weirdest thing. But talk about like the sounds, because at night it was just dead silent. You would hear nothing. You wouldn't even hear these
Yeah.
foxes, but they're tiny. They look like little chihuahuas, and they're the cutest little things. But yeah, that's my story. You
Oh,
just
that's
reminded me
so
of it. Like,
funny.
well, one of my guys, his name's Evram, just came out screaming, like waving his arms because he thought he was going to die. There's these tiny little chihuahuas that were trying to get in our tent. Um,
That's
so
so cute.
oh yeah, it was weird. It was weird for sure. Something you did not expect in the desert. Um, so everyone has their reasons for their adventures. So mine was to,
Mhm.
I was always, the smaller kid and the weaker kid. And I was always I got to show the world that I can do this. And, in the suffering, I realized I stunk at all of it, but I would still love it. I sucked at every ounce of it. But everyone has their why or their reason. What was the
Yeah.
reasoning that got you into the whole hiking experience?
Um,
Like your why? I
one
mean,
birthday.
okay,
Yes, yeah. One birthday, I told my husband, he asked me what I wanted to do, and I was like, I want to go backpacking. Didn't know anything, bought a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff. My pack weighed an embarrassing amount of weight. And something just clicked on me in that weekend, and I never stopped. So, and then in 2019, I really, really got into it and just was on YouTube, was trying to learn everything I could. I had no idea that people even through hiked. I didn't even know it was a thing. And so when I found this out, I was like, okay, hold on, I need to learn more about this. And yeah, after that, that's my why is 100%. I can't stop exploring. I want to see everything, and I know I don't have enough time to see everything. So I feel like if you have the opportunity, go. Don't wait on if it's present, like put in front of you to do it. Don't hesitate. Just go as far as you can. And if you don't go all the way, it doesn't matter. You still got to spend that time doing what you love. So every opportunity I get, all of my long distance trips are on a whim. Something just happened in my life, and I was like, okay, right now I'm leaving in 2 weeks. This is how it's happening. So I never plan long distance trips because I feel like it's just too much for me. So it just always falls in my lap. I have this X amount of time available in my life, so I'm gonna go on this hike because it fits in that time frame.
see, that's actually the question I was going to ask at the end too. That's perfect because a lot of 90% of my viewers are people that have work full-time jobs. So I'll be asking that really pertinent question to what you said because you're falling into all my future questions. This is great. So, um, so on this last trail, um, what would you have done differently?
I would have learned about the road walks. 165 miles of the 500 miles are on a road, and that is the parts that are unfinished. So there's actually more roads. I would say almost half or more than half of the trail is a road because even though it is a finished passage, you're still walking on a road.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have, not that it would have changed if I went or not, just so that I could have better mapped out when Ricky needed to come get picked up instead of spending more money on staying in multiple hotels to get him at a safe spot. So I do wish I would have done more research on that so that my mom or my husband could have picked him up and then like dropped him off at my campsite. So that is something, and I'm like so determined because I couldn't find anything online. So I'm like so determined to make a very thorough video on exactly where the roadwalks are and what kind of roads are on there, just so more people can prepare because there are a lot of unsafe sections that you have to walk on those incomplete passages.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you're familiar with the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin, but it's a huge trail that goes through Wisconsin. But half of them they call them connective trails, and they're 10, 20, 30-mile hikes on roads to the next trail. And it doesn't really state that on the
Yep,
website. You learn the wrong way and the hard way for
exactly.
sure. So I really wish there was information on the site saying this many points and they'd marked on the map. This is the road connect. So it is
Absolutely.
unsafe. I mean, you camping, um, you're camping right on the highway at some points. You have no place to
That was
camp.
something that I just refused to do. I refuse to camp even near a road for my safety and being
Oh yeah,
solo. That's just not an option for me. So it was like you had to commit. If the road walk was 22 miles, and for instance, there's a military base at 16 miles, and before and after it's a road. So you have to commit to an over 30-mile day to get out of that because you can't sleep at the military base and you can't
yeah.
sleep on the side of the road. So it's just a lot of planning around dangerous situations.
Okay, yeah, and that's something that I think people need to be more aware of when they're designing sites and websites to informing people because it's a frustrating thing when you're hiking more on.
Absolutely.
I mean, I could hike on roads at my house. You know what I mean? It's a frustrating.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
probably on a hike. That's probably the most demoralizing part. Like the Watchdog Trail doesn't have very many of them, but when I walked it, I was very disappointed because I was like, "Where's the woods? I'm walking on roads and almost getting run over by."
Yes,
You
I
know,
want to be in the forest. Yeah.
yes, I want to be away from people and
And
not
road
getting hit
walks
by
are
cars.
so hot too.
Oh, and I feel it
Yeah.
harder. So,
They're
um,
so hard. The sun is just beating on you. It's so bad.
it is probably the one of the worst, and you're using the same muscle on over and over and over. It's yeah, it's not my favorite thing. Um, so what advice would you give? I mean, it could be the same thing. What advice would you give a person wanting to do this trail? Experience or inexperience. What would be advice you would one major advice you could say? This is what you should do or prepare or whatever. So what would it be?
Yeah, again with the road walks, be prepared that you are going to be on the road exposed to a lot of people. The second is if you're looking for a secluded hike, then this is it. The only time I really saw people is if there was a waterfall or something where you had to use the Palmetto Trail to connect to get to the point six that they were walking or something. I would pass people that way. That was more in the beginning in the mountain area, and then after probably mile 225 to 500, it was very, you were very much by yourself. You do get to go through towns a lot though, so it's nice to like stop in and grab like a Gatorade or something cold and then keep going. So I did appreciate how many gas stations and fast food places I passed and all kinds. So that is a perk that I'm not used to. So that was,
Yeah,
I even door dashed a few times. I
that's
had the
cool.
option to DoorDash. So I was at like a designated campsite and I ended up just getting some stuff sent to me. So I didn't have to stop for a resupply the next day. I just had Dollar General come and go ahead and just send me my resupply.
So how was now I'm curious, this is from my point, because every trail I've done, except for a couple, um, they had trail towns. And you had either great towns that loved the hikers, then you had trail towns that hated you
Yeah.
and your existence. How was the towns that you went through? Were they overall were they good or were they like, what are you doing in my backyard, you know?
Nobody knew what I was doing. Everyone looked at me like I was crazy. It's a
Okay.
lot of walking in people's backyards and walking in their front yard, and everyone looked at me like I was lost or that I needed to come get picked up. Like everyone was just very
Okay.
concerned. Newberry is a college town, so everyone was very nice there and kind of more under. I think like more of the college students are hiking the Palmetto Trail, so they were all like, "Are you through hiking? Are you through hiking?" But that was the only section that people
Okay.
asked me that. Everyone else was just like, "Ooh, like, are you okay?"
Yeah, I had a friend. There's a new trail that goes through Croatia, and he said that the towns, of course, typical European and foreign trails is end to end. We don't campsite to campsite like Americans do. You know, we campsite to campsite typically, but they
Right.
do end to end hikes. But the Croatian trail is kind of just like the trail that you went on. Is very, um, it's not well set yet. They're still in the works. And so at one point, this guy
Right.
was hiking and he decided to camp because there's no camp area. And a guy walked out to his tent and opened his tent, and he spoke broken English. And he says, "Can I help you? You're in my backyard." And the guy had no idea the trail was going through his backyard. So he had to explain to him he was hiking. And the guy, next thing
I
you know,
did
the guy
that.
wouldn't leave him alone, kept on giving him food. And he said that he was so excited to know a trail
Oh,
went through his backyard, but he had no idea why this guy was hiking. So I thought it was pretty funny.
that's
Uh, so yeah, trail towns, if you go by the right ones. I mean, I've been through some that recently that um, I was going to think about staying, and I think I would have been kidnapped. And I heard the week before the town ended up someone in town ended up shooting a radiator out of one of the campers' trucks, and so they don't like
oh
trail
my
people at
gosh.
all. Yeah, so I was really glad that I decided to move on to the other town. I mean, but yeah, it's you got to prepare your territory and knowing that, you know what, I need to know the history of what this town
Yeah.
thinks or whatever, but you never really know. I mean, hiking towns can be
I
wonderful.
had I had one situation Yeah, I had one situation where you could see the trail and I could see the next blaze. Well, they have like little plaques. I could
Okay.
see the next plaque, but I was walking through signs that said no trespassers, I will shoot. And I'm like looking back and forth. I'm like, what do I do? So I'm like looking and looking and I just ran. I just started running. It wasn't very far, but I just started running and I'm like, please see my bright purple backpack.
Like he's sitting there shooting from his window or something. Yeah,
He's
that's
just waiting for hikers to come by. I'm like,
oh,
he's like, I
I have
warned you.
seen those in multiple times in my hike where I'm sitting there going, I'm just gonna hunker down and hike on my trail. So it's
Yes. I was
it
walking right next to deer stands and stuff, and I'm like, is
oh
there someone in there? Like, I'm just like, I'm like, oh
oh
no.
that's terrifying. Um so you mentioned originally about your the person you hiked with. You don't have to give the name, but was it a friend? What was your experience with it? Did you learn from them? And they were part of your trail family previously that you did the AT. When you
Yes.
hike with people, it doesn't have to be on this trail. It could be as you became. See, that's one thing that people don't understand when because a lot of people hike. I think these like the Ouachita Mountain Range, and they hike the ones that are um, not a really focused trail that builds family, builds character over time.
Right.
Um, so you first of all explain like a lot of people have never experienced this. I've experienced it at some points, but the hiker trail family. Well, what have you learned from them? And then did you learn from this person when you did more one-on-one on your trail here? What was it the most you've learned from these guys?
Yeah.
What was it that that you could pull away from this group and say, this is what I hold on dearly on my hikes that I've learned from these people of who I am or who people are or whatever. I'm just leaving it open blank for you.
Yeah. On the AT, I met Legs and Astra. Legs, we were inseparable. We hiked every day together. Most families break up and do stuff. We did not. We were committed. There were a few more of us, and they ended up going their own way. But the three of us never left. We met early in the Smokies, and that was it. We instantly became best friends, and even after the AT, we have done multiple hikes, the three of us together. And we were just in our group family chat. And I said, hey, I'm leaving in 2 weeks to go on the Palmetto Trail. And Legs, he was like, I'll do the first few days with you. And I was like, that was awesome because it was getting me into it. But this was the first time Legs and I hiked, just him and I, and we had a blast. We laughed so much. We had so much fun. I genuinely was so happy that he was there and that we got to have that hiker trash family again. And even just having the bad days where it was just, we were just so tired and done. It was just funny to have, or just a good feeling to have someone else to complain to that understood like why you were in the attitude that you were in
Yeah.
because of what just happened. And so and he's so calm. He's such a calm person that you can't really be stressed out around him because he has such a calm demeanor. So I appreciate that a lot because he is just like the level head in our tramily, and us being like one-on-one with the hiking on that. He also, when I got Ricky, he was there because when I was getting off the AT, Ricky came into my life, and he was there. So Ricky knows who Legs is. And as soon as they saw each other, it was the funniest thing. It was like, boom. And Ricky would have sold me for a hamburger to hang out with Legs more.
That's
Like he
awesome.
loves Legs so much. So watching them be able to have that 6 days together too was so awesome.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what this world really needs. I was there kind of the original boom of CrossFit when I was one of the first box. It was one of the first affiliates ever for CrossFit, and it was all about
Cool.
family. It was all about uniting
Yes.
people, and that's kind of what brought us all over the world was building CrossFit boxes. And but people craved that community. People crave that
Yes.
one-on-one family that they couldn't have within their own biological family. And I think that is probably why hiking has become such a massive thing now. Like when I did the Trans Oklahoma, everyone was like, "You're stupid. What's wrong with you? No one ever does that. 511 miles is ridiculous. You'll never make it." So, see if I didn't lose you.
To do it.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, I lost you a little bit there for a second. But the crazy thing is that people thought I was a drug head because I wanted to go do this 511 miles. So, you know, I think again, this is what you're kind of explaining is that the kids are looking for this community. You know what I mean? They're looking for
Yes,
this um this family that they don't have back home. It's a non-judgmental family that I
absolutely.
smell bad, my breath stinks, I'm a grumpy turd, and they love you for who you are. And so
Yeah,
no, I that's one thing I want people to hear is I think this is what got a lot of people through the pandemic during 2020 is and
oh,
after
absolutely.
it was the hikes and the family they got to meet on the trail. So and that's what caught me with your videos
Absolutely.
is because that I kind of lost my trail hiking during the pandemic, and then I've kind of did a small adventures here and
Yeah.
there, but my big adventures kind of went away. So like watching some of your Instagram and everyone viewing, you got to go and we'll do a tag for her so she could everyone could go to her page. She has the best videos in the world. Like when I'm struggling or I'm frustrated,
Thank
I
you.
I she's blunt as all can get out, and that's it's a good motivator. She's and the reason why I never use influencer because I feel like influencers are sometimes fake, you know, and you're not. You're
Yeah.
just that's why I think me and my wife like your videos because it is. She's like, you know what? I could. My wife hates hiking. She likes hiking. She hates
Yeah.
the camping, and so she's like, I can do this. I can do this. This is cool. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna interview you to get other people to see that too. So people could get a lot from your Instagram, a
Yeah.
lot because you do great content.
Thank
Stuff that I've
you.
tried and I was like, it's over my head. I'm done. I can't do this. So
I have
um,
so much fun doing it.
do you have fun editing too when you're doing this? For your
Yes. Oh,
oh my gosh,
absolutely.
that's so stressful for me. I that's why I'm doing this because
I
it's so
know. I
stressful.
love it.
See, that's I guess that's out of my range because it's so stressful for me. So, what advice would you give someone that can't get more than like a week off? Someone that
Yeah.
has a full time job, has a family. Um, I mean, you have that you have that job, you have that life, you have it's you're not waking up every morning and hiking 500 miles just because that's your life and you get paid for it. What is the advice? Because that is my biggest challenge with people, and a lot of my viewers. Sorry, you're going to see my cat in a second. A lot of my viewers are um, about 45 years old, about 70% of them, and
Okay.
and all their reasoning is I can't do it. I only get a week off, and I'm this and I'm that. What advice would you give those people that really want to do it, but I think they covered up with the fear, or they try to use I only have a week and I can't do that fun log adventure. What would be the advice you could give them?
Yeah. Yeah. First, if it's a fear thing, my best advice is do it scared. I mean, everything that you do new is scary, and you're not gonna fully know if this is something that you could really fall in love with unless you just swallow your fear for a night and go camp. So that's my thing. Do it scared. We were all terrified the first time we were out there. So just find a friend and go. If you only have a week, I don't think that's an excuse not to go because a week is more than enough. There's no time limit on being outdoorsy or having an outdoorsy experience. One night is enough to have an experience that's going to change your life. And
Good or bad,
I
right?
think a whole yes, yeah, I mean, a week. If you have a week, you have enough time to go do the entire Foothills Trail, which is 76 miles.
Mm,
So there are trails if you want to be a through hiker or you want to do a long distance trail, you can definitely do a few of them in a week, but you don't need to. It doesn't make you less or more of a backpacker if you do 2 days or 6 months. Especially if you have kids, I highly recommend getting them out early and getting them
mm.
used to it and teaching them. I think it's the best school, is putting them in Mother Nature and just teaching them how to survive, what they can eat, what to respect wildlife, teaching them about forest fires. Everything that you can teach them is just, it's so valuable, and it'll be something that they can use for the rest of their life. So I very much revolve my entire social media presence on encouraging people to go outside, regardless if you're scared or you feel like you're unprepared. Being unprepared for one night is not probably going to be the end of the world. You can always just park next to your car and go home if worst case scenario. So do it scared.
Yeah, very, very good advice. Sorry. I hope that now that I got picked up, my dog and my cat decided to try to be in the noise part of this. So my question for you, and you mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to have one more follow-up question too with this, because this is you're really you're hitting good points that I think my viewers need to hear. Is you mentioned chores, so hiking chores.
Yes.
So that is a lot more. So most people think, well, I'm just going to get my tent up. I'm just going to throw, like a lot of the times you see on YouTube channels, like you said, you did YouTube. I pop the tent, I blow up my bag.
Mhm.
Oh, I have ramen noodles to eat. It's a really cool experience. You should do it too. And with a through hike or even a 3-day adventure pack, there's chores involved. So
Yes.
can you give a little explanation
Absolutely.
of that? Because when I talk to people about chores, they go,
Yeah.
chores? What do you mean you got chores when you're doing this? I'm like, it's a little different, but it is chores. So can you enlighten some people with
It's
that?
chores. Yeah, so I have a routine. I feel more comfortable when I'm solo backpacking that I do everything kind of in a roundabout order, just so I know that I am doing everything. And now it's kind of autopilot for me. I do it so much that I don't even think. I just know I pack my bag to unload it exactly what I do. So chores involve, you have to go collect water, you have to filter water, you have to cook your food, you have to clean your pots, you have to set up your tent, you have to change into your night clothes. All of these different things. You have to clean your body, you have to brush your teeth, just like things you would do at home, but you have to realize that it takes time to do each of these chores. And usually collecting water, if you're not camping next to water, you still have to filter the water that you brought in. So it is a long list of chores, but I think they're pretty fun. I think that for the most part, I don't feel like it's a hassle, but it is something that you have to do. And it's not just pop your tin up, go to bed, wake up, keep going. Because then you have your morning chores as well that you have to remember to do it all again to make sure that you're prepared for your hike. So yeah, there's definitely chores involved, and I don't advise skipping them.
Well, I've seen so many people where they get irritated, 3 days into the hike where they're like, they're so gung ho for it. Next thing you know, your backpack is looking like a smashed everything. They can't find their
Yeah.
food. Their tent is in the way because they just crumble it up and throw it in because they're tired and
Yes.
irritated. And if you don't do your chores, you don't have your list. It's gonna make your trip miserable because you're gonna forget things and lose things like I
Exactly.
did.
Yeah.
And I've done that too, where I'm like
Yes.
I'm trying to get
Yes.
some food and I'm throwing my tent out because I'm trying to get food that I just packed wrong. It's vital. It's vital.
Don't even ask me how many times I've lost my spoon.
Well, I somewhere in the Watchtower Trail is definitely some clothes left on a hanger that I completely forgot because I was just wanting to get out of there.
Yeah.
And so they're probably looking at some drying T-shirts that they're like, what is this? Some homeless person left his clothes everywhere. No, it's just me forgetting
Maybe
everything.
it was trail magic for someone else. Maybe someone had a huge hole in their shirt and they needed another one,
Well,
and you provided that.
in the Watchtower Trail, there's a lot of like country boys in the woods that like to just
Yeah.
steal stuff. And so they probably wanted a T-shirt, and they're like, "Thank goodness I got myself a T-shirt." So the Watchtower Trail was a little different. I was expecting to have, this whole cool trail experience, and I was by myself, and walking through spiders because no one ever hikes there, and it's the coolest. Like they have probably
Yeah, I know that.
yeah. And have you been on that trail yet, or um the Watchtower
No,
Trail?
I just every morning when I woke up, because I was the only one on the Palmetto Trail,
Oh
that
yeah.
it was just, I kept making jokes. I'm like, no one has walked on this trail since 1974, because there is no way that they have produced this much.
Oh,
I'm
it's
like having my trekking
terrible.
poles in front of my face.
Oh, and the Watchdog Trail, and that's one of the questions I was going to ask too about this is like, so Watchdog Trail is one of the coolest trails short term. That was, a 300-mile hike, so it was more of a shorter term hike. But their shelters are almost like the AT shelters, but they're so kept up. They are
Cool.
like pristine, gorgeous. Every 10 miles is a shelter. Um, was
Oh,
that like
that's
that on the
nice.
Palmetto Trail at all, or was it something that was just more rustic through? Zero. Okay.
Zero shelters. Um, the only designated campsites, don't quote me on this, but mostly the designated campsites you had to pay for to stay there. So I did pay for a few campsites because you go through a lot of state parks.
Mm-hmm.
But all the other ones were just me walking as nicely as I could, like over ferns or everything I could, and finding a cleared out section and kind of hiding in the woods because like you said, I could tell that it was like I was on private property on one side, and I could tell that there were I was walking through like old moonshining sheds and stuff like that.
That's
So
terrifying.
I was like in the deep country of South Carolina in that section, and there was just like abandoned sheds and everything. So I was like, okay, we're gonna go hide. Like we're gonna go a quarter of a mile into the woods, hide, camp here, and then I'll just walk a quarter of a mile to come back out to the trail. And that's just kind of was
Probably the
my
safest bet you could have done. So,
yeah. I was like, it's okay.
so we have roughly about 9 minutes left. So there's two questions I'm dying to ask. The first one is, and this is what a lot of people I think get confused. Because when I tell people I'm
Okay.
going to go backpacking, and then I'm telling people I'm going to do hiking. So what
Yes.
is your thoughts? The difference between backpackers and hikers? So I'm kind of an ultra snob. I do the ultralight everything, because I'm a weak man and I
Yeah.
can't do anything over 8 pounds or I'm dead. Um, but what is your thoughts on backpackers compared to hikers and the difference of them?
I feel like backpacking is you're overnighting. You're doing a multiple day trip that involves you packing out your food, finding water, filtering it, doing your chores, everything like that. And I feel like hiking could be considered day hiking or an overnight or um, platinum blazing, which you go to like a hotel or something like that, or, if at the end of the night. But in the end, I feel like backpacking is hiking, but hiking is not backpacking. So that's
Yes.
kind of how I feel
Okay.
it. If you want to be go on a backpacking trip, then you need to plan to carry every single thing that you need to live for the multiple days that you're going to be out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well said. Well said. And so, it's funny. Like one of my first videos that I ever did, I did a short trail um, in southern Oklahoma, and it was about 60 miles. And I said, "Hey
Mhm.
guys, I did my first hike through." And the guy goes, "That's not a hike through." I was like, "What do you mean that's not a hike through? I threw a hike the whole thing." He's like, "No, you didn't. That's not a hike through. Hike through has to be 100 miles." So, what is your thoughts? And I have a debate with so many people on this. What is your thoughts? What is
Yeah.
a hike through in your opinion?
I think mm.
Isn't that such a
It's
tough
difficult
thing?
because it just depends. A lot of people want to say that they're purist in their mind, so it's like you have to walk every single mile, not skip it. Then you've done your through hike. I think if you are out there going from one point to the other and you do what's comfortable for you and that you go as far as to that point, if you skip a few miles, I still think you're a through hiker. I think that that's an unhealthy way of thinking to say that you have to do everything perfect for it to even count. And to say that someone spent 4 months of their life outside, I'm just like, have the title. You can be, if you walk from point to point. I just think that it's gotten to a point where, because, like you said, that hiking and backpacking has become so popular that it's also become very criticized. And
Mm-hmm.
as cliche as it is, I know that people say like hike your own hike, but I do believe that. Like if something doesn't feel right, or if you're not having fun, then change it because it's about having fun. You need to be having a good time out there.
I think too is it's trying to find. I think a lot of people are that we have the largest pilgrimage in our country's history with the so many hikers on the PCT and the AT and the Colorado um, Great Divide Trail. We have so many people doing
Yeah.
these hikes, trying to figure themselves. So I think people not putting so much in their brain to be a YouTuber or how the YouTuber does it, and how those kind of things that just hike their own hike. I love what you said.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
my final question for you, and it's a double question, is uh, are you going to have a new adventure coming up? Do you have it planned? Okay.
Yes.
And at the end of that is, would you do the Palmetto Trail again?
So they go together. Actually, I want to do the Palmetto Trail again in the wintertime.
Okay.
I'm thinking this winter I want to see it in a different light, and it got so hot and so sweaty and gross. I want to see it on a winter aspect. I love winter hiking in the South. I don't know about it up north. I can't justify that. But in the South, it doesn't get too harsh. So I love doing that. But before that, I'm thinking about doing the long trail maybe. And next month, I'm going out west to kind of do like a national park circle. I'm seeing 5 new national parks when I go. So
Awesome.
not a lot of hiking, but it's more of a road trip. I only need to go 9 miles, but I'm taking 5 days to do the 9 miles so that I can see everything that I can see. So that's my that's
like a
my
rejuvenating,
closest
like a rejuvenating trip. That's
yes,
good.
yes. I just want to drive to everything.
And then fall in love with it again, because sometimes I think it becomes a chore, the planning and
Exactly.
everything. It becomes you
Yes.
lose the fun of it. So
Yes. Yes.
no, now if you can, on Instagram, what is the tag that we can maybe have people check you out, and then I'm gonna try to post that on my link too,
Yeah.
to send more. You have what, 17,000 followers on Instagram? Is that correct?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, and so
I
you're
do.
really
Yeah.
making some waves. So what's the name of your account?
It's Kaylee Hikes. It's Kali and then Hikes, and I have platform on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Clapper, all the fun things.
Okay. Yeah, so we regionally just shut down our Facebook account, which was one of our biggest platforms, and just because that's just not a
Yeah,
dying platform. So
uh,
um
it
so we have a little
is.
more freedom. We've moved ours to TikTok recently, which is I'm the old man doing TikTok. It's just weird. So I'm asking all the young crowds, hey guys, how do I do this? So it's a new world for me, and
I
a lot of
am
my
too. On
viewers.
TikTok, I am definitely like a senior citizen.
Yeah, it makes me ancient. So yeah, so I'm asking
Yes.
and I had to kind of coach a lot of my newer viewers or my older viewers that how to go to TikTok and how to look up some stuff, because I can do more funny and crazier videos
Yeah.
and stuff. But this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, and I would
A
love to have
great
you back
time.
on as our guest again next year if we could,
Yeah,
and maybe I'll have my wife in on the interview
absolutely.
so she can fangirl over it.
Please.
So
Yeah.
so hey, I do appreciate you.
I would love to
And
meet her.
yes, and again, thank you to
Thank
People of the
you.
Woods for sponsoring this. Everybody go check it out. They want you to do what Kaylee is doing and getting out in the woods and having a good time, camping by creepy sheds
Yes.
and having great adventures. So thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure, and
Thank you.
we'll be posting this up very soon.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
It was good talking to you, and
Bye.
all right, take care.
Okay, all. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Man, it was probably one of my favorite kind of interviews I've done in a while. And things just keep getting better. We have another guest. If it lines up perfectly, ran the Barkley Marathon, so we'll be interviewing an awesome lady that is a wife and a mother, and she was able to get training done for that. So you guys will be seeing that interview coming up soon, and then we have a gentleman that decided to pack up everything with his family and travel to every state in America, trying to find a new place to live. So we'll be hearing about his adventure also coming up in August. So thank you all for staying tuned, and hopefully I'll be posting some adventures from this hike that I've done in Rib Mountain, Wisconsin, and showing you some pictures and some awesome things that this place has to hold. So you guys have an awesome day. Take care.